I learned about Ellis Island in fifth grade. We had dinner every night at my grandmother's house, and we would go around the table and say what was going on in regards to our schooling, a subject of the utmost importance to our matriarch. I told her I was learning about Ellis Island. As a black kid learning about Ellis Island, we focused on the white kids in class because, as far as my teacher knew, none of the students of color had any relatives coming through Ellis Island, and this teacher was the epitome of what you would call another brick in the wall. What I gathered from her teaching was that Ellis Island was a magical place where my white classmates' ancestors were able to come to this country, and in all likelihood, my ancestors came over as slaves. Due to the color and shade of my skin, I figured I had some white heritage, but I didn't know where it was from. So, as we were going around the table, my grandmother said, "You know, my grandmother came into this country through Ellis Island. She came from Scotland to marry my grandfather, who was a dark-skinned Native American Negro man." I was floored. I told my teacher, who, in her nature, treated my discovery with a healthy dose of skepticism. Her teaching style made it abundantly clear that it was up to me to learn the truth of the history of my people. This is my history. It was September 8th, 1898, when Margaret Maggie Wood stood upon the deck of the steamship Mongolian and first laid eyes upon the city of New York. The Statue of Liberty stood upon its pedestal, welcoming her to a new land, a new life, and the anticipation of cultivating her newfound love. 14 months earlier, she met the man to whom she was now promised.
They say the ocean is a thrashing beast, trying to drag you below. But not to me, dear heart, it's a golden or blue road, not so far left to go. I left not my heart in old Dalkeith, I carry my love with me. These bags are feathers in the wind beneath my feet, 'cause I carry my love with me. I left not my heart in old Dalkeith, I carry my love with me. These bags are feathers in the wind beneath my feet, 'cause I carry my love with me.
Her love, Martin Van Buren Hamilton, was a dark-skinned Native American man who boarded at the house of Maggie's sister, Christina, in the city of Dalkeith. The company Martin and his cousin worked for had been hired to asphalt in town, and each fell in love with one of the two sisters and was determined to marry the sister of his fancy. Martin and Maggie quickly grew infatuated with each other. Martin spent the better part of 8 months courting Maggie, during which he made very clear his intentions to make her his wife. Maggie made no secret of her love for Hamilton. She found him to be intelligent, handsome, caring, and God-fearing. Upon being informed of the match, her father and mother made serious objections. They eventually consented when they realized that her determination to marry him outweighed their concern, and they offered their blessing. When his work with the company in Scotland was done, he returned to his home in America to get his affairs in order and prepare his home and community to receive his intended bride. They continued their correspondence, and in time, Martin sent Maggie the funds needed to purchase a ticket to emigrate from Scotland to America and become his bride. So there stood Maggie on the deck of the steamship, knowing that the next morning she would arrive at the barge office to begin the immigration process, propelled by her feelings of love, anticipation, and hope. She spent that first night on the Mongolian docked at the port of the Anchor Steamship Company in New York Harbor. The next day, she went into the barge office to be processed. It was there Maggie Wood declared to Commissioner of Immigration Fitchie that she had come to marry Martin Hamilton.
Your reason for wanting to enter this country?
Marriage.
Marriage was a sufficient reason for a Scottish maid to enter this country. Martin had come to the barge office to meet his bride-to-be, the sole dark-faced amongst a crowd of those waiting to retrieve their loved ones. His tall, slender frame made an impression on all of those present as he strolled through the barge office and took his place in the queue. It didn't take very long for Commissioner Fitchie to seek him out amongst the din, with the intention of inquiring, "Who are you here for?"
Excuse me, sir. May I ask who you're here to see and for what purpose?
I'm here to meet Maggie Wood, who has agreed to be my wife.
You're making a great mistake. You seem to have forgotten where you are. This is America. Everyone of her own race will ostracize her, and you as a couple. I'm not sure she realized just what she has agreed to in taking you as a husband.
No doubt there are several things you're not sure of, good sir. I will make Maggie Wood a better husband than 9 out of 10 white men. And this system for which you decry was first inaugurated by the white race when one of the people of your own color, Mr. Commissioner, married a cousin of Ham.
Martin's response spoke to his fortitude as a Christian man. Of course, Fitchie had apprehensions about a Scottish woman marrying a Negro man. He turned Martin away and interrogated the girl.
Did you come here to marry the Negro man waiting outside?
Yes.
Are you aware that it is not customary for whites Negroes to marry in the States?
Well, I'm aware it is not customary, but as far as I know, it is not illegal to marry a colored man in the state of New York.
If you are unable to marry this Negro or if the wedding didn't happen, what are your plans? Do you know anybody else in the States who can take care of you? Do your parents know why you're here?
My parents approve of this match. If Mr. Hamilton strikes my fancy, they have no objection to offer it. He's the only man who's ever struck my fancy. He has kept every promise he's ever made. I shall marry him if he has to go to Scotland or follow me to Europe.
At the end of the day, Commissioner Fitchie decided they needed further deliberation and that they were going to detain Maggie indefinitely and let the Board of Special Inquiry investigate the case. That first day in the barge office, her second day on American soil, they were not permitted to see each other. Martin was kept away from his sweetheart and departed in anger. He went back to Newark, where he was boarding at the time, to get the support of the community, including T. Thomas Fortune, editor of the New Age. Back at the barge office, determined to do all he could to prevent the union, Fitchie contacted 3 people. The Reverend Francis P. Carruthers from the First Presbyterian Church of Taunton, Massachusetts. The Scotsman Darnold O'Reilly of Harrisburg, PA, and his superior, T.V. Powderly. Reverend Carruthers was a strict Presbyterian. Darnold O'Reilly was one of the people permitted to see her with Carruthers. He was a Scotsman, and as he put it, "For the sake of countrymen, I have come to try to persuade the woman to change her mind." T.V. Powderly was the Commissioner General of Immigration at the time. Saturday, September 10th, day 2 in the barge office, day 3 stateside. Throughout the morning, Reverend Carruthers and Miss Wood discussed the case. Notwithstanding, she was a strict Presbyterian. She refused to allow any argument of the minister to convince her she was doing any wrong. The clergyman, disheartened at his failure, asked Commissioner Fitchie to hold Maggie a few days more. Upon discussing the case, Commissioner General Powderly came up with a suggestion.
Why not send her up into the Negro colony to see the life that the poor lead up there?
They brought her through the Negro quarter on the west side to show her the worst side of life, with the hopes that what she saw would show the worst side of Hamilton. She hadn't eaten anything since her arrival. It's unknown if that's because they kept food from her or because she couldn't bring herself to eat.
Yesterday, she was taken through the Negro quarter where whites and blacks mingle, with the hopes that what she saw would make her renounce Hamilton. She recoiled from the scene that she witnessed, The girl has eaten nothing since she has been detained and is weak. Upon her return from her trip uptown, she said she would do anything the immigration authorities would want her to do. She admitted that marriage to Hamilton would be unwise.
So there she is, in the office, held for 3 days without food, very little sleep. She's been having multiple conversations with men trying to convince her not to marry this black man, drug all over the city, breaking down and saying she'll do whatever they ask, and then immediately taken in front of the Board of Inquiry. After being sworn in.
How old are you? Where are you from? What is your marital status?
I'm 25 years old. I was born in Scotland. I am single.
Who paid your passage to America?
Martin Hamilton.
Who is he? What is he to you?
He is my intended husband.
Were you ever here before?
No.
Have you any relations in America?
No.
What do you intend to do here? Where do you intend to go now?
I want to take a situation if I can get one.
Have you any money?
Very little.
How much?
$1.
This man who paid your passage here and to whom you say you are engaged is a colored man?
Yes, sir.
Where did you meet him?
In Glasgow, Scotland.
How long since?
1 year ago, last August.
You did not realize until you came here the condition of the colored people, did you?
No.
Are your father and mother living?
Yes, sir.
Did you come here with their consent?
Yes, sir.
You still intend to marry this man?
No.
What has led you to change your mind?
There are many things since I came here.
Can you mention some of them?
I do not wish to be mixing with colored people.
Reverend Carruthers then stepped forward to speak.
I haven't anything to say except this. This coloured man, Martin Hamilton, went to Glasgow, Scotland and roomed with Maggie's family. He made an impression on her. Now, in regard to her family and her father and mother, I know them. They are respectable people. I think they do not know anything about this. Do they, Maggie?
No.
She says now she wants to take a situation if she can get one. Have you any place for her?
That, of course, is something new. Maggie has held out all along that she wants to marry this man until 3 hours ago. I have no doubt the Episcopal missionary can get her a position. The only doubt in my mind is that Maggie might change her mind.
No. I will not.
They took Maggie out of the room and brought Martin into the room to keep them from seeing each other. Martin Hamilton appeared before the Board of Special Inquiry with his representation, T. Thomas Fortune, and being sworn in stated,
I live in Buffalo, New York, number 59, William Street.
What is your business?
I'm in the asphalt work.
Do you do manual labor or do you supervise it?
I do the manual part of the work.
Are you a single man?
Yes, sir.
Are you a citizen of the United States?
Yes, sir.
Have you come here for Maggie Wood?
Yes, sir.
She promised to marry you?
Yes, sir.
How long have you known her?
About 14 months.
She was here before the board, and we asked her if she wanted to marry you. She said no, she would not.
I do not know how she can say that. She must have been influenced. I would like to have her come and say so before me. Let us see each other face to face. And if after seeing my face, she decides she doesn't want to marry me, I'll be gone. You'll never see my face again, and nor will I seek to send my people your way and send an uproar in the community. Obviously, you've been able to convince her to renege on her promise to marry me. There's nothing really I can do. I can't force her to marry me. Let us see each other. If this is to be our last time together, let me say our goodbyes, and we can go about our business.
which you know is not what happens. So they see each other. They embrace. Somebody yells, "Order, order, order in the court." They have just seconds together to say, "Hey, I got you. I don't know what I was thinking. Of course I want to marry you."
He's kept every promise he ever made to me, and I'm going to marry him. My sister and my parents know we were engaged, and they approve of it. I gave up 2 white men for him. If you send me back to Scotland, he'll just come back there too. Oh, I cannot think of anything or anyone but you, Martin. I love you indeed I do, and I will marry you if I have to go to Scotland to do it. I love you.
I will never give you up.
You heard her. Mr. Hamilton has been unjustly treated, and the immigration authorities have not permitted him to see her. There is no law that says he may not marry her, and he will fight any attempt by the authorities to send her back to Scotland. I will see that Hamilton has proper legal representation to address this case and take it to the highest court in our great nation if any further effort is made to intimidate the girl. You take her on any more field trips, the wrath of God himself will come down upon each of you.
This Board of Inquiry will recess for today and confer over the details of this case. We'll reconvene on Monday.
That was a Saturday. Seems they took Sunday off. While Maggie was sitting in a cell, held against her will. They say Maggie sat in the detention room at the barge office, crying softly to herself. Since being detained, she still had not eaten a morsel of food. Sunday was a day of rest, and being devout Christians, they did what they knew to do in troubled times. They got on their knees and prayed.
How long, O Lord, will you hide your face when my heart feels lost at sea? Sorrow harbors in my soul. How long till you walk with me?
They had faith, hope for the future, the feeling of being alone. One set of footprints in the sand. But at the same time, while they're both physically alone, they know in that moment that they each have each other. They were in this together, and they're going to see it through.
We left not our hearts in old Dalkeith. We took our love to the sea. These days are dark, but the light will shine on me. And one day we will be free.
Martin Hamilton, the black American who expected yesterday to marry Scotch Maggie Wood, a comely young Scotch immigrant who arrived here on Thursday, was at the barge office ready for the ceremony early in the morning with his counsel, T. Thomas Fortune and D. Macon Webster. The girl was willing, but the Special Board of Inquiry wanted more time to consider Maggie's case, which is the first of its kind in the annals of the Immigration Bureau at this port.
The case continued before the Board of Inquiry on Monday, September 12th, 1898, her 4th day there. Each side was armed with an argument, while Fitchie aimed his pistol of justice. Webster unveiled his Tommy gun.
Ms. Wood once renounced Hamilton in our affidavit and at the same time admitted that she had no money and runs the risk of becoming a public charge if she decides not to marry Mr. Hamilton.
It is only the authorities of this immigration board who have prevented Miss Wood from marrying Mr. Hamilton. That particular statement was made under duress, as Miss Wood was not only malnourished, but had also been harassed and intimidated for several hours by parties called upon by you yourself, Commissioner Fitchie. Only then did Miss Wood express any hesitation toward marrying Mr. Hamilton. Now, Mr. Hamilton is determined to wed Miss Wood on the very same day she is released from the custody of these immigration officers. I find it an affront to the freedoms granted citizens of this country that the singular issue giving this board pause to release Miss Wood is the hue of Mr. Hamilton's skin.
Indeed, it is the hue of Mr. Hamilton's skin that gives this board pause.
You have, through this moment, made every effort to use the powers at your disposal to dissuade a match approved by her parents and said to be consecrated by God himself.
Are you aware, Counselor, that there are 24 states and territories in which the marriage between whites and blacks is considered void? Among the states are Colorado, California, Oregon, Nevada, Idaho, Utah, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, Delaware, Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. It would be practically impossible for Hamilton to live with any of the far southern states should he go there with a white wife.
I assure you, sir, it will be my advice to my client that he and his soon-to-be bride steer clear of those states you've just mentioned. Though I also am aware of the absence of the great states of New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania from the list you just introduced. None of those states where Mr. Hamilton lives or intends to make a home have laws against miscegenation. The comings and goings of a man and his wife are not any concern of this board. I have prepared a motion to take this case before the U.S. court on a writ of habeas corpus should you refuse to allow Margaret Wood to land. Indeed, we will seek civil action against the immigration boards and all of its agents in regard to the unlawful detention of Miss Wood, who has spent an unprecedented amount of time in your custody. We look forward to Miss Wood's unencumbered, uncontested discharge from your custody.
I suggest that the decision in this case be postponed till tomorrow to give the lawyers time to consider the legal and other aspects of the matters at hand.
The next day, they heard the final judgment of the board.
It is this board's finding that while the situation may be indeed troublesome, it is the first of its kind in the annals of the Immigration Bureau at this port. So it is after much deliberation and contention that this board has decided to release Margaret Wood into the custody of Mr. Martin Hamilton for the purposes of making good on their promise to join each other in the sacred vows of holy matrimony.
They wed that very same day.
Love at last breaks down color line. Dusky Martin Hamilton marries his pretty Scotch sweetheart. She is finally set free.
A man's a man for that.
Yesterday, love triumphed again over the traditional locksmith, this time in the person of the Commissioner of Immigration. And the wedding marks the end of as interesting an international romance as the newspapers have reported in many a day.
Maggie and Martin's friends and family were waiting when the matron brought Maggie from the detention pen and kissed her goodbye. Maggie turned to where Martin stood and with a happy smile entered the carriage that whirled the strangely ordered couple to the home of Reverend P. Butler Tompkins, pastor of St. James Colored Presbyterian Church, number 436 West 33rd Street. There, the Scotch wife of the colored preacher had prepared a dainty wedding luncheon that was heartily enjoyed by all. Then, the little party went upstairs to the parlor. Hand in hand stood the tall, erect, slender, dark groom and the shorter, rounder, rosy, blue-eyed bride. His eyes glanced fearlessly around the room. Hers were prayerfully downcast, her head bowed. Occasionally, she glanced hastily at the clergyman or stole a look at her dusky lover, but she was plainly contented. No ring bound this pair together, only the words, "I now pronounce thee man and wife. Whom God hath joined together, let no man put asunder." As the newlywed couple slipped from the room, Hamilton stopped just long enough to receive congratulations and to tell that he had a home for his bride in Newark, New Jersey.
We shall go there tonight. My home is in Buffalo, but I go wherever the company I work for the New Jersey Asphalt Company sends me. For a year ago, the company sent me to Scotland in 4 months, and it was there I met my wife. We shall board for a few weeks and then go to housekeeping.
All the bride would say was,
Oh, it was all a Mickle Fust about nothing.
that's the story of how Maggie Wood came through Ellis Island to become Martin's bride. They had 9 children who went on to have their own. And the story goes on to this day through their many descendants. In each generation, the endeavor remains the same: to speak up against injustice to yourself and those you love. Special thank you to Catherine Liu for her contribution to the music, Jean Armstead for research, Joey Braccino for the tech, Mariella Klinger for her artwork, Dave Seaman for directing, and thank you for watching.